And I am come to express it, that men might feel the beat and the pulsation of light as it surges forth into the night like a beacon, to bring the sacred fires into the hearts of men, that they might awaken from the lethargy of the senses and understand the meaning of virtue. I am come then this night to bid you welcome, who have shown me the fervor of your love in days past. But I say to you, that which is to come will be the time of testing the metal of your perfection, that it may be determined once and for all, and have done with it, all of that substance which is of the earth earthy, that the purification may come about in your time, the renovation of the souls of men, and the opening, penetrating then through that substance of human density and imperfection which has not set the record straight, and bringing all to the age of accountability and the consciousness of divine right. Too long has the lethargy of the senses caused the souls of men to sleep. And as we confer here in Darjeeling, our hearts are stirred by the awfulness of the attitudes of recalcitrance which mankind continually manifest. A new apathy arises day by day, and frightful are the distortions of confusion and discord, while the Lord himself continually streams forth the beauty of his appearing, a dazzling star to adorn every night, as it were, with the advent of the Messiah coming. And yet men continue on about their business, considering these manifestations of God as though they were fireflies in the night, the mere meanderings of an insect, probing the unknown aspects of darkness, when the Lord is in his heaven, and the purity of his raiment sweepeth across the world, and would enrobe all with that righteousness of the Spirit which will give them their ultimate and final freedom now. I say to you, and I speak from the realm of authority, the day of the Lord is at hand. Armageddon stands before mankind, and the day has come when the hosts of light must stand up and fight for that which is right, as the knights of the Table Round, to hold the Grail concept in solemn convocation, and to know that our cause, now not on behalf of England but the world, is the more stalwart because of the oppression of the times, and requires men and women of such distinction that they shall not go down neath the steeds breathing fire and brimstone of mankind's iniquities, but shall establish for all time the great cosmic purity of those who have partaken of the communion cup of our covenant immortal. I say then to all of you, when the fears of the world seem to cause you to tremble as upon the brink of destruction, cast it aside, and empty that cup upon the earth, and say, I will not drink of thee, for I have a cup of communion and holy solemnity, which is of more import to my soul, and I deny thy power to alter the path of my destiny, which is cosmic and not dust. I will therefore stand in this day and age, and in all ages to come, as a devotee of holy truth, one who recognizes the puny attitudes of mankind and their ridiculous excuses, as they say, I must do this and that, while the kingdom of God is bypassed for the saloon. I say to all of you, drink deeply then of the draught of God's will, and stand up in this day by the side of the legions of light, by the side of Archangel Michael, and by the side of the ascended host. I have caused a decree to go forth from our council table, and every ascended master of our council has signed it. Your own Gautama has signed it, and I have with joy fixed our council seal to it, and it has been delivered this day to the great karmic board petitioning then to the goddess of liberty and the entire board, that the angelic legions of light that have long been subjected to the house of David and to beloved Jesus shall be released, even the 12 legions of angels from the Father's heart, to come now and to descend to the planetary body and to stand by the side of all those who are arrayed on the side of light, truth, and right. I have urged then that the angelic host shall recognize the calls of mankind, and that this day the charge shall go forth, the charge of righteousness and truth and justice, that shall bring about the power of the angels in actual warfare against the forces of darkness and gloom, which have too long spread their pall over the face of the earth and the hearts of men. The sun has been hidden, and as though it stood still and were removed from before the eyes of men, and they have gazed as without hope upon the image of the Madonna, and have not realized that the mother of the world is at hand. They have not known that she is their cosmic mother, and that they must make their pledge, as it were, in blood, the blood of their own life's holy energies, regenerate in the cup of being to the establishment of the kingdom of God. Men are afraid of the pestilence and terror of the world. Well, let them now know that the wrath of God descends in the hands of the angels of God against the iniquities of men, and the Lord of hosts shall direct himself through the hands of the risen Christ and the power of the Son of God, the Lord of lords and King of kings. The captains of the Lord hosts shall move forward into the world of form, and shall bring about the power of this age, to end the reign of darkness and fear, and bring a new light into the consciousness of all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your rising tribute. May it ever be thus and propel you upward. Won't you please be seated? Now then, interpret this action and understand once and for all time that which we are doing. In times past, men have felt as though they acted unilaterally. They have felt alone, and the strands of cosmic unity have not been apparent to them. Those servitors of light upon one part of the planetary body have not recognized or known other servitors of light. And so it came to pass that in their aloneness they did not feel the great power of cosmic unity surging through the earth. Now, as the Watch With Me 1 hour program gains momentum, additional individuals shall add the power of their God flame to the great cause of holy freedom, and individuals shall come into greater awareness of the holy mission which they have to watch over the holy aspects of freedom in this land and all lands, and to understand that the battle cannot be lost when the world is so filled with souls desiring to see the great cosmic purity of all ages descend into manifestation. Now then, precious ones, as the advent of the angelic descent becomes more and more apparent, you will recognize that you have the right to call upon the power of the angelic legions to stand by your side and do combat and battle against the forces of darkness. Too long have mankind submitted and gone down under the boot of tyranny and treachery. Now mankind shall have an ally, the powers of light, led by the Lord of hosts himself and the captain thereof. The meaning of this may not dawn upon your consciousness for a time, but when it does, I think we shall have a rejoicing and cause of rejoicing unparalleled in your time. For it means that war does not occur any longer merely in heaven, that is, in heavenly places, but war occurs upon earth, not the physical aspects of war, but the great power of spiritual warfare that will bring an end to those destructive forces and acts which have caused such perplexity and confusion to the minds of the Chelas of light, who in their own bright countenance have realized there is a reflection of deity, and they cannot perceive in themselves the strands of hatred. Therefore they cannot understand how it should occur in others. And they feel the bond of common unity in the force of life itself, and they recognize that the strands of cosmic purity that are resident within life itself and beats their own heart exists also in others, and sometimes manifests in a tyrant also, who does not fear the karmic law by reason of his ignorance, and deigns to do service to the Prince of Darkness. Let men now then cast off all lethargy, all that action which does not take into count and cognizance the power of Christian cosmic unity. You may wonder and ponder why I have used this term. It is because I refer to the light of the Christ as a unifying cosmic force and factor, which must manifest in those sons and daughters of heaven who elect to be God-like in their doings and are not afraid to face the consequences. And consequences there will be. For when you array yourselves upon the side of light and holy truth, almost invariably the sons of Belial will themselves do you, as it were, in a manner calculated to bring derision and laughter upon you. They may be inclined to mock the very faith which you espouse, and to try to interfere with a manifestation of that faith among men. Pay them no heed. They have no power except that power which you give unto them by recognition. Therefore give them no recognition, for the devil, that proud spirit, cannot stand to be mocked. And I say to all of you, it would be almost well if you would take a pattern from the book of Martin Luther and throw the ink and the inkstand all in all upon that one, for the writing that he would cause to be imprinted upon the page of your life is not worthy to be read by the recording angels, and only the power of the Word of God is worthy to be recorded as a manifestation of your own life's energy. Now this night, many of you have awaited my coming. You have recognized that I would come with the fire of God, and so I have. But I tell you, although I may come with a conflagration calculated to set the planet on fire, except this flame be caught up in the strands of your own dedicated substance and set fire to that consciousness of light within you, it would be in vain. For only by acceptance of the divine revelation, only by acceptance of the power of God unto salvation, will you be able to sweep forward in our name and do the necessary service which the hour requires. And the hour is late. The hour is late for this age. And mankind now abide in an era of hazard, when the darkness and the discord and the despair and the confusion tend to cover over the pure image of the Immaculate Concept, and mankind wonder, who is God? For they do not see him hiding behind the sunbeams or the smiles of mankind or the joys they daily experience. They see only the manifestation of the pall of human gloom. Sweep this aside then, and acknowledge the divinity of the presence of God within your world this hour. Archangel Michael and his legions are here tonight also to do you a service and assist you in manifesting the mercury diamond shining mind of God. I say then, let us sweep the brains of those individuals in this audience clear from human accretion, and let us direct an arrow of light into this audience, that they may be pierced with that light and know that it is the light of right, not by might and by power of mankind, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. O angels of the diamond shining mind of God, angels of the diamond heart, and brothers of the diamond heart, I say now, be interspersed then between an angel of Michael's legions until 10,000 strong, in ascending tears around this place, you may assuage the tears of men and bring to those assembled here a new sense of freedom from all fear and from doubt and from the penetration of unwanted psychic substance. I say then now, sweep forth through the brains of these individuals and touch the pia mater and the dura mater, and cause that substance directly beneath the crown chakra to feel the wonderful radiation of liquid light essence, that the freedom of the dome of the rock may manifest to all, and the ark of the covenant may blaze forth through the pineal body of mankind. For the Lord is in this place, and his holy angels will do service unto those who will open up their own heart's door to receive the ray from betwixt the covering cherubim thereof, so that there is now established a new order of the ages. Legionnaires of the holy temple of goodwill, who will go forth to do battle with the forces of evil by submitting themselves unto Archangel Michael and unto our own beloved Hercules. As legionnaires of light and truth, to keep the flame of God forever blazing, to keep the light of God forever raising, to keep the purity of God forever blazing, to establish peace o'er all the world, that God and man and angels praising may recognize the fiat of victory established now and for all time, and for the world's freedom sublime, so that the bells of all of the churches and temples of the world may simultaneously ring out an anthem of freedom and praise to God. O precious ones, as I surmise now that some of you are a little taken aback, as it were, at the intensity of my release, I say to you, this is nothing. It is but 1/10 of that which I would gladly give to you if the great law permitted it. I tell you that some of you would not be able to sleep this entire night if I were to release to you the other 9/10. But because I am holding it back, I trust that you will sleep in the arms of your divine presence, and ask before you pass into the realm of slumber and the arms of Morpheus, that you shall be taken here to our temple, where you may inspect the documents, that is, the copies thereof, which were submitted to the karmic board, and if necessary sign them with your own life's energy, so that you too may have a part in that covenant which I expect to be established for this entire age. We have already received a temporary grant which has permitted the inflow of the angelic host, but the full establishment thereof depends upon you, blessed ones, and your acceptance of my request. For I have only acted in the interest of mankind, and have the assent and agreement of the ascended masters themselves. we still require ratification before the Karmic Board can make this document a permanent grant. And therefore I urge all of you who are desirous of seeing this world a place of freedom, where the glory of God can stream forth in ribbons of descending light, that you will know that to win this fight we shall require every ounce of energy and drop of light substance in your veins and in the veins of all mankind. For all have partaken of the action of staining the blessed steps at the approach of the church with the brilliant crimson stain of energy released infamously. And now the snow-white dove must descend upon the stain and blot it out with the light radiance of God until the shedding of blood is no more, and only the offering of life's energy becomes compensatory for the freedom of man. And all then are united as never before in the great filial bonds of love that is the power of heaven throbbing within the human breast. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please be seated, for there is a tremendous action that will occur just above your heads, and we require that space in order to bring about a tremendous release of light, which in itself would prove damaging if you were to actually receive it frontally and at that level. Be prepared then for this tremendous burst of cosmic light, which I shall cause to pass over your heads, that it may be trapped in the auric net and will release gradually and safely the tremendous pulsations of our light substance and the power of the angelic host into your own light substance as a very definite raising power to the entire planet for the purposes of consecrating in this new age new disciples and chelas of the hierarchy, initiated by the power of acceptance at the human level. Now I want to point out to you that hitherto we have accepted at the etheric level such individuals through the process of initiation. But that which we are about to do this night is an action taking place simultaneously upon the etheric level and upon the blessed emotional level and upon the blessed mental level, and then foursquare upon the physical plane action as well. Lux fiat! O light, thou art the King of all creation. Blaze thy dazzling light rays forth in God's holy name, and let his heart draw the response of the hearts of men, until the white stone kindled in the hearts of men recognizes the new name of God, written there, for I. It shall never be taken from those who shall continue to keep the faith, and they shall rise step by step on cycles stair until they see ascending in the air the radiant faces of the angels fair, whose love is everywhere, like a prayer, bringing spirals of beauty and compassion and rainbow rays and substance of immortality, not only to the consciousness of the children of the earth, but to the children now grown to maturity and form, who shall ascend into spiritual consciousness to become the children of God, the children of men, the children of life and not the children of sin. For then we shall see the completion ray, fulfilling forever, forever, and for God purity, God security, God victory and peace, and the fullness, the purity of freedom's release. O Holy Spirit, Lord Mahachohan, touch now these hearts with thy flame, and let the radiance of that flame sustain the God power within. And may the cleansing perfection of the seekers for the Holy Grail illumine our knights and ladies fair of this table round. For in this age, too, we need crusaders for thy cause. For thy cause, O God, is pure. For thy cause, O God, we offer our all. We would make secure this land and all lands. It is our land. It is God's land. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. And the new grain shall spring forth, and be gathered into granaries of peace. And the covenants of God shall be sealed in the hearts of men, and in the highest orifices of heaven. And the flame shall stream forth from the sacred altars. And the countenance of men shall be altered, and they shall be transfigured in the twinkling of an eye, as in a moment. The victory of the ages shall be born, and none shall ever be able to prevent this wondrous state of victory. For as in the sword and the stone, only the appointed of God shall draw it forth, or return it to the scabbard sacred. It is done. I thank you and bid you adieu. Gracious ladies and gentlemen, I recall through the process of memory how that many years ago when in the city of Paris, for I kept a small home there also, to which I would journey on occasion. I walked one night at sunset, alone, to a peculiar little area near the water, and stood watching as the twilight descended, far from the maddening crowd of the city. My thoughts flew as on wings out over oceans and continents to other lands, and I thought of the vastness of the world, as no doubt you too have mused. And I sensed the great abiding presence of beauty within the human soul. And I knew that in my solitude and aloneness there was a great blessing which could never have been realized had I been then among the multitudes. The Christ, long ago, demonstrated also his desire to be apart from the multitudes. But all these withdrawals were for purposes of strength, that the bond of grace and immortality could then become boundless in sense. Man, you know, is often prone to render a situation grave. And I would take the gravity out of a situation and teach the art of buoyancy to you, whereby you sense that behind every veil and all seeming mourning, there is the sun that lights the cloud with gold and silver, and a little touch of heaven. The tiny concept of a babe, whether in Bethlehem or elsewhere, with rosy cheeks and bright eye, showing the freshness of heaven, not only gladdens the hearts of mothers, but of all people throughout the earth, who are often pulled by the radiance come late from heaven to their consciousness. And so, as I mused by the water and beheld the lamps of evening lit, and as my soul flew Godward to muse upon color and upon the part the rainbow spectrum plays in the manifestation of reality, I gave thanks to God in a silent petition offered upward for his gift of color relative to the rainbow of promise, which in our artistic minds we often employed in order to gladden the hearts of men with simple scene executed with such talent as God gave to us. Today, in their kindness, and because time has passed, lending enchantment to the view of our art, they choose to praise us and to think of us as great men. Michelangelo, Raphael, and many of the other greats of the past are considered to be artisans of tremendous ability. And Titian. But I would remind you of that great painter, of the sky itself. I would remind you of the angels who make the color of morning and evening, and the brightness of the sea and the foam. You recall perhaps how that there came from France to a South Sea island a painter who dwelled among the natives there and was fascinated with the joy and the sense of the joy. May I now then give a criticism from the ascended octave of his work. You perhaps did not fancy me an art critic at this stage of my development. And perhaps it is best that I do not directly refer to him by name, but I am sure that you can easily ascertain the one of whom I speak. This individual captured something of the bizarre in France in his sketches upon tablecloths and other common items. He became quite famous, and mankind were not quite aware of the fact that part of his work was a perversion of the third ray of divine love, for he was never able in that embodiment to discover the delicate and radiant sense of Michelangelo. This was because he was enamored with womankind in the manner of the ordinary, and he did not understand the proper use of womanhood. Now, my reason for referring to him today in criticism from his spiritual octave is not to direct energy against his blessed life stream, but to point out that there was a certain garishness about his work, and that this is ever the case where the purity of soul does not permit the angelic radiance to come through. And I cite this not to harm him, but as a guide to future men of the skill of brush and craft, so that they, taking warning, may recognize what they ought to do and what they ought not to do in the realm of art. There is an inner sense in art, a transparency of spirit, which views the body of man not as filled with arterial canals or bone and skeletal framework, but recognizes all of the points of balance where the skeletal framework would be, but sees it all as light, retaining its complete form as though there were nothing there to hold it except light. And in this transparent sense, man is able to frame the body and fashion it with brush in hand in a more delicate manner, for the angels do not have flesh and bone. They do not have a musculoskeletal frame to hold together their being, and they are composed of light. And you also in the ascended state will be composed and held together by light, and the internal organs, many of them, will not be necessary to your existence at all. Certain focuses of the glands, of course, will remain, for they are jewels of light placed there to remind you of the call from higher octaves. These jewels will always remain with you unless you chose to be completely absorbed by the great central sun. And then, of course, you would offer them for cremation on the altar of God through the process of the highest nirvana. But this is usually not required, for most individuals are happy to perform some service to life in a blithe manner as the angels do, in the various octaves of life, even far above the ascended state. For the ascended state is but a beginning, and there are many octaves beyond, reaching toward the Godhood and the Godhead and the center of all that is. But the servitors of light are required there, and holy men and women of dedication are required there and are needed. And there is a great service to be rendered, even in the higher etheric realm, and also in many realms yet unknown to the mind of man. You need not fear or ponder or become exceedingly curious, for all is linked with being, and being is linked with God. And you may rest secure as a babe in the arms of its mother, who knows not of the concerns of the world, nor has not yet learned letters, and yet is content with an inner contentment to sleep upon her bosom the quiet sleep of infancy. In comfort, men also of mature states may rest in the arms of the Holy Mother and be aware that the concept of the Holy Family is one not just for this earth, but for heaven also. Did not our Lord Christ recommend and commend to you the concept of the Father? The Heavenly Father, then, is made more real to you by reason of his mission, the sublime joy of God, never holding any conceit, but only the Immaculate Conception. You see, precious ones, the idea of conceit is somewhat related to the idea of conceive, but it is a wrong conception. I point out many things to you this morning that your thought may not necessarily flit about, but that you may recognize the tenor of that which I am driving at, as you say. For I have a purpose withal in all that I say to you this day, and that purpose is the engendering of the cosmic sense of art within you, that is not confined necessarily to three-dimensional form, takes into account the four dimensions, and therefore enters into the octave of God purity, where the goddess of purity and the great silent watcher together hold conclave in revealing the immaculate concept of each individual person or monad to that individual, so that they will not see themselves as bone and flesh and muscle, or see themselves as ego bobbing upon the waves of life like a cork, but rather as a stable factor in the universe, a spark of the great sacred fire wheel, the wheel of life, turning in all its dynamism, the wheel of the sacred fire and the wheel of the law. Take note, blessed ones, how that the vibratory action of wheel is affinitized with the vibratory action of to heal, for it is in contact with the great wheel of the law that man's ills are all cured and God mends every flaw. Else sin and its inequities would be endured, and the world would stand in awe of that rightness of inheritance which God would see all secure. Strength then must not diminish, but enfold all, and compassion stretch forth its bonds on wings, until as songbirds with heavenly melodies the hearts of men can sing, and hold such love in view as shall improve the lot of men and still the elements of strife, those tones which are a din rather than the voice of immortal life. I say then, let strife end all, and let love expand over all, until God has removed every pall, the strength of sin. All nature then shall sing, and freedom's bell shall ring, and compassion shall enfold, making the world so old, so new, so fresh to view, with colors rare and sounds so fair, heard ringing upon the air, as morning light breaking forth everywhere ends the night of despair and creates a new sense of virtue and liberty. I am come then this day to remind you of the Master's words who preceded me. I am come that they might have life, and that more abundantly. The outer sense, O precious ones, has never brought the freedom of expression that the inward one does. Blessed are ye then among men and women, O children of the light, for you have the rare jewels of ascended Master compassion and understanding. I know full well how that you differ in your appreciation of the art. Not all of you have the same development, but it matters little, as you have been told in this class, if progress be made. For ultimately, if you remain unafraid and shall move forward in the light, you must win in God's great fight for victory to each one. Then the sun will burst upon your soul with all of its rays and radiance, and the light that maketh the universe whole will come to full glory and expansion in your world here below as above. And this is an understanding factor in the Godhead itself. For with what measure of understanding shall mankind measure their strength, if not by the divine standard? If they shall measure their strength by the human standard, shall they not all vary? But if they shall measure their strength by his strength, shall they not all become one? And if one, then I think, as Saint Germain would say, the work shall be well done. And if well done, then victorious servants, you shall become that which God would have you be. A part of the ascended host. And this is the most glorious state that you can ever imagine. Precious ones, is the divine art not worth waiting for? Is the divine art not worth possessing your souls for? Is the divine art not worth all? And if these things be so, then let us gather together the children of men in wielding the sacred powers of the Holy Spirit to capture the divine idea in stone and bone and canvas and substance, as well as in that which is above. For all that man doeth below must be executed in love. And if so, then as in the early days of ancient Greece, in the age of Pericles, the great golden strands of heaven's light shall even shine forth in the land and constitutional government. and the voices of freedom will ring out. Men like unto Paul Revere alerted the people in days of old. Today this task is sometimes left to the ascended masters. We do not, however, say that your assistance is unwelcome. We welcome it, for I think that there are many of your brethren that would heed your voice even more quickly than our own, for they have not yet understood how that we may speak and come unto them in this fashion. They have forgotten the old prophets of Israel, and they have forgotten the gift and true art of prophecy and spiritual attunement. And false prophets are abroad in the land and world, not directing men toward God, but toward Magog and toward destruction. Truly, blessed ones, then, the dawn of thy immortal inheritance pulsates as a flame within thy heart. And if liberty is ever to be enshrined in this land and upon earth, it must be enshrined in the hearts of the people. Will you now, under the direction of those who sing among you and your pianist, as I radiate liberty's flame over this city and call to the Mahachohan to bring 10,000 snow-white doves to this city, to bring the light of purity to this city and its government, will you sing to the old familiar tune of the French national anthem, the Song of Liberty, while the doves come with the angelic hosts over Washington as wings over the world, wings to raise, to elevate, to purify, to ennoble, to bring a message of the new culture that shall be, that shall make men of liberty a part and of God's light forever free. I thank you. '62, please. Proclaim in the stillness of love, dawning and breaking within the heart, we come tonight as protective legions. For I have not come alone, but I have brought with me those protective and guardian brothers, comparable to the French Sûreté and to the Secret Service of your own land. These brothers who guard the holy concepts of light and purity in diplomatic relations between nations and peoples, reporting to the great Karmic Board on those conditions apprehensive with danger and fraught with fear, because mankind have charged the danger and discord of their worlds into these outer conditions, which become ominous and threatening as a dark cloud and as a darkened sky. It is our service to life, then, to reach out into the world and to discover, wherever possible in advance, those conditions that portend of danger, and to bring deliverance to mankind by the power of God's love, as a service on behalf of freedom and the strengthening of the bonds of affection between mankind. Hence our service is one of cosmic protection and the establishment of virtue in human hearts. We are not the discoverers of those nefarious activities in order to detect and bring to mankind's attention those tendrils of evil driven into the heart of the earth. But ours is a service of love to bring to the attention of the Karmic Board, and as I have said previously, to the attention through diplomatic channels of the earth, whenever there is a threat to freedom, so that some form of protection can be released and mankind may not become further enslaved in this age of peril. Now the wherewithal to operate our staff is furnished in part from on high, and partly by calls of the chelas of light for our intervention and assistance. Hence it is most important that all of you understand the great need to make calls unto us in this day and age, so that we may take that authority thereby conferred and granted. For we cannot interfere with man's free will unless we are invited in the main, except in matters of immense size. I hope that you understand something of that which I am trying to convey to you this night. For the world this day and this night is also not without peril. Frightful elements have invaded the politics of this land and seek to bring about discord and destruction in America through the playing of race against race and creed against creed, the setting of neighbor against neighbor, and the bringing about of pain and destruction through all types of fraudulent gossip and services to the powers of darkness. And their purposes are devoid of good and empty, and they cannot bear fruit of the Spirit, which is based on love and joy and peace and compassion. Therefore, I alert all of you to the great need of this hour for the protection of America and the world, that calls to light will produce a flame of guardian protection all over this land and world. For we are not in any way restricted as to our operation. We can pass with ease through the walls of buildings and even through men's tubes of light when we are invited to come in and commune with them and bring the blessing of our own God flame to merge with the God flame within them and expand it yet further. This is no violation of cosmic law when we are invited to come in and to sup with men and women of holy love and in the bonds of communion to give them our love. You have heard it said, "Be not forgetful to entertain strangers," and we are cosmic strangers to many, but you are not strange unto us. I say to you then, one and all, and to all mankind upon earth, that the time is at hand when you must penetrate the veils of human deception. You must learn to magnify the flame of God truth and to exalt the purity of God love. And you must recognize that in the gall of bitterness and ignorance, men become wise in the art of deceit, and they practice this in all fields, political, religious, and even in private affairs, whereby they seek to obtain power over other men's lives and gain entrance into their world in order to bring about some good to their own, based on materiality and gain. Those then who are wise and alert will test the mettle of those concepts presented to them by the flame of Christ's illumination within their own being. It is never wise to depend upon the ill-chosen words that others sometimes utter, for mankind who trust in the arm of flesh are often deceived. But those who in cosmic purity look to God for their revelations, and then are not suspicious of men's motives, and I stress this for a reason. For when men are suspicious and entertain doubts and imperfections prematurely concerning anyone, this often opens the door for the deceit of the world to flow in, and they see exactly those conditions in others which they fancy are really there, which may not be there at all in truth. In the cosmic secret service, we have a rule, even here, that every case of judgment must be submitted to the karmic board. Ours is but to report those conversations and happenings which come to our attention for judgment to our superiors. And although we ourselves are ascended beings, we leave these matters to the great karmic board and their vast experience, and the staff which surrounds them, who are better able to interpret these things, even than those of us charged with the responsibility of penetrating even psychic substance in order to determine its intent, benign or otherwise. Some substance, precious ones, is charged with a certain amount of good in order to give it a masquerade effect. This does not mean, then, that because a thing appears to be good in part, that it is necessarily so, for its motive must be carefully examined, and many things must be weighed in the balance, and often things that appear very good on the surface are wanting indeed in the motive of cosmic purity. However, it is not too difficult to determine the intent of any outer condition if you will only make the necessary humble attunement with your divine presence. For no man or woman, no one can deceive God, ever, not even for a moment. For the great light of his perception shines forth, the holy light of truth, and penetrates all substance. Substance is sometimes very resistant to the penetration of the chelas of the light, and refuses to yield its secrets to them, simply because they do not have the necessary charge of energy to break through and shatter that substance with the lens of their perception and the beam of their penetration. It is necessary then that when this condition arises, that they appeal to us, who are indeed servitors of light, that we may bring the blessings of our own perceptions to your attention. And we will do so in many cases, and refuse in but a few. You must understand, precious ones, that when the ascended masters refuse a certain request, that this does not mean that we love you the less. For we know and must accede to the demands of heaven's law and heaven's laws. They must all indeed be recognized and taken into account in a divine sense of balance, that we may achieve the greatest end for the good that we do. To simply do good without understanding the direction of its movement and what will be the ultimate goal is sometimes a mistake. I recall numerous occasions when we have recommended a certain condition to the karmic board, that a certain individual should be cut free from a condition that was disturbing them, based upon our own examination of certain available facts, that this was refused by the karmic board, who penetrated deeper into the cosmic records and caused a search to be made by the keeper of the scrolls of the ancient records going back as far as Lemuria and the Lemurian records. It is therefore important that all realize that the intricacies of life must be penetrated by godly beings, qualified and able to give of their service to the children of light. Can you see then how dangerous it is, precious ones, for unascended mankind to attempt to penetrate the aura of another, unless they be placed in a position which you might term a juxtaposition, where great forces momentarily are arrayed against them, and they must make a decision speedily. Even then, it is best, precious ones, to take defensive measures without being offensive in the action which you desire to protect yourself and your own particular God plan. Now, the causes of freedom in America are threatened and continue to be threatened by many nefarious forces. There are a number of writers in this country who are spewing forth the most vitriolic novels based on sex and dope activities, and create a consciousness in mankind of these conditions, which actually feed the sinister force with the energy of mankind's attention. For these articles which betray the youth of the world are perused constantly by them, and they read them and enter into the consciousness of the writer, who himself is linked directly with the dark forces. And therefore it comes to pass that by the attention of the readers, a mighty net of destructive activity infiltrates the world itself and brings the youth of America and other parts of the world into bondage. I would like to bring to the attention of some of the older ladies here who have called for many years, and I refer only to your physical appearance, for the youth of the world, that it is absolutely true that many destructive life streams from Atlantis have come into embodiment and are now of teenage and older, and are expressing a tremendous sense of rebellion against organized society and the forces of law and order. These need to be cradled upon the lap of God. They do not need censure and destructive activity. Of course, it is necessary that the police departments of the world, who are charged with the responsibility of keeping the peace, shall do the necessary at all times to protect every citizen within his home and on the streets of this land and all lands. But this is not the cure, for the causes and cores of these conditions must be penetrated, and it must come about that these individuals are loved free, for they are rebellious, blessed ones, because of terrible impositions that were brought upon them during ages in the past, when the black magicians held tremendous force upon this planet and wielded a far greater power than in the present day. At that time, the youth of the world were, of course, many times bound, and subjected to most awful actions in the use of sex energy, which brought about frightful abortions and creations which culminated in the destructive activity of the flood, referred to as the great deluge or flood of Noah. You see then, precious ones, that these life streams have been very sinned against. And in the novel, Cry the Beloved Country, you are given some insight into the action of the Lemurian race. And therefore you must understand that many of the problems presently involving the American Negro and the African Negro, and the problems involving the white race and the doctrines of white supremacy are very old and very unfair, and do not properly take into account the great law of justice and harmony. I therefore call to your attention that mankind upon this planet must recognize and pay allegiance to the forces of light in order to find the God harmony within themselves, so that they will be able to live at peace with their neighbors, regardless of their origin or beginnings. I tell you, precious ones, a frightful action could occur in this nation and other nations through the continuation of the forces and powers of racial hatred and the destructive consciousness of mankind, which sometimes is unleashed and is a holocaust far more destructive even than the atomic energy which mankind are so frightened of. I call to your attention that if the earth itself were destroyed by the explosion of a hydrogen bomb, for example, this would but destroy the physical body of mankind. But when great forces of hatred and darkness occupy the consciousness of mankind, it is the type of negative energy which destroys the very fabric of the soul and sets back the evolution of the planet into the dark ages of Chinese torture and times of great lawlessness, when the physical form of man was subjected to great cruelties. Therefore I urge upon all, in the holy name of freedom, a greater measure of cosmic understanding of the burdens and problems of this age, the need to protect the youth and children of the world against the nefarious forces and plots that are hatched against them. The director of your own FBI, Mr. J. Edgar Hoover, is aware of the tremendous problem concerning the youth of America and the world, as are other men skillful in the art of apprehension and detection of crime before it happens. They are sometimes, however, in their own inner consciousness, most bewildered as to just how to cope with these situations, which sometimes do, as you know, get out of hand and threaten to engulf organized society in a maelstrom far more destructive even than the hurricane that recently swept in from the sea upon this land. Precious ones, I call then to your attention to the great need to alert others of mankind to the dangers inherent within profane reading material. For I tell you that some of these authors are directly connected with the Brothers of the Shadow and the false hierarchy. They are connected directly with the actual antipode of the Great White Brotherhood, the oppositional force which seeks to sweep mankind into destruction and an action of utter destruction as well. You do not realize, precious ones, that mankind so frequently become but pawns upon the chessboard of life, and they themselves, moved hither and thither by forces beyond their ken, do not recognize the threats to their own security and the security of their posterity. I tell you, precious ones, we of the Ascended Master's octave work together and present a united front to one another and to the world. We do not find it necessary to criticize the action of one another. Take, for example, that beloved Master El Morya, who is no tyrant, but is indeed a forceful man of spiritual attainment. We rejoice when we hear him, as it were, cracking the whip over your consciousness and admonishing you to greater diligence in the perception of God's love. We are, therefore, tonight rejoicing in the fact that El Morya will be speaking to you upon the morrow. When evening comes, we shall also join him here with many legions of light, and shall look forward to some action from his level that shall enable America and the people of the world to summon the necessary energy of protection and perfection that shall gird up the planet round about with great powers of protection. This must be done intelligently, and it must be done forthrightly, and it must be done speedily, if prevention of great damage to the body politic of the planet is to occur. And yet I know, and I have confidence in the God presences of you all, and in the great resurgent forces of Christ's light that are even now sweeping forth across the planet to do our holy bidding. For as I speak to you tonight, an action has taken place at the archangelic level, and Archangel Michael, with his drawn sword of blue flame, has descended through the atmosphere and taken his position near the podium here, and is extending his mighty sword of blue flame into this audience to give you some measure of his own desire to see freedom blossom over the earth, and this speedily. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. Won't you please be seated? Archangel Michael is extending his radiation into the audience in order to produce a consecrated faith in the hearts of you blessed people, so that you will recognize that if you can summon enough faith, it will not be necessary for us to be so alert to perform services of protection and detection. For if you have enough faith to correct and mend these flaws before they happen, it is what we might term preventative medicine, and it is very good for the world and for the troubles that threaten it. Therefore, precious ones, our love is behind beloved Jesus' Watch With Me 1 hour program as a mighty activity of light, which causes all of you to receive the benefit of one another's consecration and protection. This is a great bond of freedom, and it means everything to you. The freedom of your homes and persons, the freedom of your families here below, and the freedom of your nation and its laws. It means the freedom of the earth from all of the hordes of war and destructive elements that would bring about the downfall of man. And it also means your cosmic freedom against the hordes of darkness and shadow that would bring about a great resurgence of disease and pain, and saturate the earth with all the qualities that came forth from Pandora's box, which is a symbol, as you have been told before. And you must understand it quite simply. For Pan is an actual enlargement of consciousness to expand. And the word expand has within it the word Pan. Therefore, Pan means expansive. And aura is related to the oral cavity or the opening. And therefore, Pandora's box is indeed a very large opening through which the discordant forces of the world rushed forth, because the great seal upon evil was removed. And now the mantram has gone forth, and long ago sealed the door where evil dwells. Precious ones, I call to your attention that after the door is sealed, mankind must also take forthright action to destroy in their worlds, in their thoughts, and even in the physical plane as well as the mental and emotional plane, all the remnants and residue of the wrong actions of mankind through the centuries. For unless the violet flame and the circle and sword of blue flame of beloved mighty Australia is employed in the cleaning up of your worlds, I tell you it would not be long before infection or reinfection would occur, and mankind would find themselves once again in the same era of darkness from which they would be delivered. Therefore, you must understand that a twofold dual action must always be taken. Protective measures to seal the door where evil comes in, and also protective measures to transmute the action of that evil which seems to be in the consciousness of man at any given moment. Ladies and gentlemen, it is necessary in the coming days that you understand that the American people themselves must play some part in the protection of their president. And I urge you, therefore, to make calls for the protection of your President, Lyndon Johnson, so that he is given deliverance, if possible, by the great law from those who might attempt a reenactment of that which occurred last year upon November 22nd. I call to your attention then the great need for the forces of light and unification to be expanded upon the planet, and mankind to recognize that all mankind are needed in a unified way to keep the forces of light rallying through the world. We cannot come where we are not bidden, and the reason we are here is because you have invited us. It is not necessary, of course, that every individual in an audience invite us, but it is necessary that one or more do so. And we sometimes presume upon the hospitality of the rest, knowing that that which we confer is a cosmic blessing, and recognizing that if mankind wish to accept it, they can expand the light within their worlds, and if they choose to reject it, that is their own responsibility, for we will have fulfilled ours. I thank you then, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention upon the many subjects which I have unfolded to your waiting consciousness this night. I would like to speak much longer and bring forth a greater measure of understanding of just how the Cosmic Secret Service works, and tell you some accounts of the great perils that have frequently befallen this nation, which we have delivered before they happened. But for various reasons known to us, I do not intend upon this occasion to make these revelations, having delivered myself of a more important oration which the great powers of light dictated to me and made known to me as most imperative upon this occasion. I trust, therefore, that the virtue which I have brought forth to you as light and intelligence from God, the reminders which I have summoned forth from the great dossier of our activity in the Cosmic Secret Service, will be taken into heart and mind by you, so that you will realize that there are many threats in addition to false writings which mankind bring forth to hold mankind's attention enslaved and to build up a reservoir of destructive energy. I hope that you will realize that there are destructive movies and television scenarios, that there are destructive activities in the mere thoughts of individuals, for many individuals find themselves obsessed with thoughts involving many forms of control and hypnotic power which they desire to exert over other individuals. This too is not wise, nor is it wise for individuals to ever have thoughts pertaining to sex and those activities of negation which sometimes flit unwittingly across the consciousness of mankind. This is always a projection of the sinister force and is never brought forth from your divine presence. For your presence is not concerned with these activities, but is concerned with the forces of regeneration that will raise you into the Christ virtue of your life and will enable you to hold the balance in this world when all the rest of the world is losing theirs. Therefore I say to you all, be commended that Archangel Michael has seen fit to establish here tonight a focus of his faith. Throughout this class that focus shall remain and shall be a source of contentment to many of you who will avail yourself of it. To others I say, God bless you, for you have witnessed this night a manifestation of our presence and our love. We can do no more than call these matters to your attention. There are enough brothers of light in the higher octaves to fulfill every call that you make, and there is never any need for any call to be denied for lack of a brother to stand in your own presence and make the necessary direction of the holy energy and assistance sent forth at your call. However, you must take into account that many times calls cannot be answered because they are violations of cosmic law. And when principle is violated, of course, we are forced to deny the request. The call compels the answer,
But the call must be based upon ascended master law and ascended master love. For individuals to call for the destruction of a nation and its people is not the plan of God. And whether that nation be Cuba or Russia or England or France or any other country, anyone calling forth a destructive activity upon another may well find that it will return upon their own head as a boomerang fulfilling the cosmic law. Therefore, send out love to all nations and its people, and promote brotherhood and felicity between peoples. So shall the kingdom of God blossom within the human heart, and in the great culture that is now forthcoming, mankind shall recognize that God is directing their every effort to establish focuses of love and light within hearts and upon the earth and its landed surface. However, great care must be exercised that the light that you employ is the light of God's love and not some human concept which you charge with a flame from your own ego rather than the flame of your own threefold flame within your heart. I have called these matters to your attention, and I would expand your love and light forevermore in the protection of the great cosmic ideal which God hath implanted in every heart. In hoc signo vinces, in this sign we conquer. Freedom, equality, fraternity. I thank you and bid you good evening. Most gracious one, as a snow-white dove, blazing a trail through the electric blue of the heavens, descends bearing the olive branch of peace, the souls of men are stirred with hope, for the world is weary today of struggle. As your beloved Saint Germain and mine has told you, it is the sense of struggle that makes the struggle. And when, therefore, those who would keep God's flame within the chaliced matrix of his radiance would cease to resist the will of God, there would flow through them a greater measure of that cosmic justice which is your freedom. Have you thought, beloved ones, on freedom in its aspect of justice? When the captives are to go free, the full meaning thereof is justice for all. For the one who is bound and enslaved must be released from all human tyranny, whether that tyranny manifest in the form of self-imposed bondage or that imposed by another. Precious ones, it is not necessary to name tyranny directly and to relate it to its source, for it all falls within the category of that which denies to man the radiance of his freedom. As I contemplate in holy admiration the magnificent outpouring of the ascended masters for and on behalf of mankind through the centuries, as I contemplate also the responses of men, I realize how your hearts are stirred by your national flag or emblem waving in a stirring breeze. I realize how that as you come to awareness of the greatness of the seat of government here in your nation's capital, of how your hearts are stirred by the thought of the manifestation of government and justice for all people going forth from among you to the world. Men are stirred by many outward symbols, but the greatest stirring of eternity is the recognition of your own proximity to the heart of freedom itself. For freedom must not be denied to any if it would come to all. And so long as men deny freedom to any, it cannot be the lot of all. For that which holds back any part of life is that which holds back every part of life. And the destiny of men here, as on other planets and systems of worlds, is linked with the administration of justice and mercy. Now the quality of mercy is always benign, else it is but a misnomer and not known correctly or identified correctly with the God quality which the name implies. When men think on mercy, it is similar to the French word for thanks and gratitude. It is thanks unto the deity for that which man himself is, and in extending thanks unto those who have less of either the world's goods or spiritual attainment, mankind extends the quality of mercy from the greater to the lesser, not in a form of patronage, calculated to exalt the bestower, but in the form of gratitude to God for the attainments of the bestower himself, who does not see the inferior acts or accomplishments of the lesser, but sees the role thereof of the lesser cast even beyond his own attainment. As an anchor through the veil of matter and form into the celestial spires of spiritual attainment, where the virtues of men become legend among the legions of heaven, the angelic host and cosmic beings. For hearken you well to this, the tale of many a mortal man so-called, known to none upon the planet, not even through the publicity of the papers, is known to the legions of heaven, who whisper to one another and say, "Behold this beautiful soul. Did you notice the good that she did unto the children of her community? Did you notice the love that she expressed as she handed the cookie to the tiny straggler who approached her door? Did you notice the light in her eye as she sweetly smiled forgiveness to her accuser? These are the things, O precious ones, that count with God, that enable men to keep the flame of divinity. For it is not as it seems to be here, where surfeiting in mortal pleasures includes the indulgence in the foibles of egoism that exalt man and his being, his name, and his fame above the presence of God and the manifestation of his justice. With what tears the angels of heaven could dampen the earth, parched and dried, and without substance to bring forth a green tree, or an olive branch, or any fruit, save the qualities of goodness did manifest therein, and so in this harvest now adorning the world. I call to your attention that the granaries that are filled with the substance of his hand and heart. God has seen to it that supply is thine, and his supply is the administration of cosmic justice to the world, giving the quality of mercy to those who are not worthy, and many then that would be otherwise hungry are full, and their physical form is well nourished. Their minds, too, have things to contemplate, but their souls are hungry for the divine food. The crumbs that fall from God's table are their portion, and they do not know the way of cosmic peace. What a pity, you say, O precious ones. Pity will not bring about the complement of deity alone, but holy prayer and invocation, holy example and contemplation, that ye may be the manifestation of that which my beloved Saint Germain is, a fount of freedom to the earth. Maternity, holy motherhood, is intended and destined to express the teaching of the children of God concerning the manifestation of holy wisdom. This wisdom drinketh not from the fount of earthly knowledge alone, written and recorded by men with pen and ink and by printer's art, but is the power of truth engrained within the human heart, a superlative manifestation of beauty, for it adorns that which is already so magnificent as to defy even the sculptors of heaven to create. For infinity could scarce sculptor such magnificence in finite substance. And yet we are asked not to betray men, but to deify them, not to drag them into the treadmills of toil to karmic bondage, but to give them their freedom and the power thereof, that they may know the meaning of life, bursting with dignity and not frustration. Wholeness, purity, love of righteousness and honor. The art, lost and rediscovered, must be discovered again by each one. For it matters not that in China a sage has arisen, or that in India a sage is born, or that in South America a breathing flame steps forth from the veil. What matters is that abiding within thy heart, O precious ones, is thy mentor and teacher, and that his words are accepted as fiats of right action. In this, liberation manifests for thee and for all life, and life goes not then a begging, but is itself enriching by life, until all share in the coffers of the Most High God, his treasure imparted by angelic messengers, becomes the bond of God's scattered family over the whole earth. The summons comes then to gather mankind together, not in a Babylonian unity, but in the bonds of cosmic freedom and justice. For my consort, your own Saint Germain, who has often addressed you in these sessions of the Keepers of the Flame, bids me tell you this day that he has no sense of struggle, for the souls of any, but only a sense of knowing that the right manifestation of freedom will come to thee when the door is open that no man can shut, and justice walks hand in hand with mercy and freedom. How shall mankind attain except they try? And how can they try without hope? And how can they discover hope but without the power of faith? They need faith, precious ones, and they must accept it. And by the power of faith, they mount up as on eagle wings to behold God in the citadel of being. Assailed by many an arrow, mankind faint not. They run, and they are not weary. They move forward, and they are not affrighted. Some of you have gathered a bird into your hands that has fallen from a nest, and you have felt the beating of his little heart, his longing for his mother, his longing for the nest, his fear of the great and vast world of the forest around him. And although God takes note of e'en the sparrow's fall, you too, in heart, record the tremolos of the bird's consciousness and fear. And as your hands close in around this tiny one, and you would but restore him to his nest, he does not know that you have his best interests at heart, and so he continues to quiver and to tremble as apart from his mother's consciousness and concepts. Restoration accomplished, fear vanishes, and comfort is restored, and you are happy with an accomplished grace to nature itself. Are mankind not of greater value indeed than many sparrows or birds of the air? And ought not then mankind to abide in the pure consciousness of the dove, of the Mahachohan, of the ascended master consciousness? As this consciousness descends upon the head and aura of each individual from the heart of his own divine presence, the presence of God, which becomes very near, infuses the aura with the consciousness of home. And your own body and vibrations, precious ones, become more comfortable to endure for the flame of your soul within. For, precious ones, great distress frequently comes to mankind by reason of their own karmic acts and the records that are within their form. For like the tiny bird, they feel as though in the grip of outer conditions, and know not that even life here is for the purpose of restoring them to the nest of God's heart and the nest of holy justice. Men tremble, for they tremble in ignorance. Let them now then receive comfort from justice and know that although I am known as the goddess of justice, mercy holdeth my hand for aye, and will so do for aye. For Kuan Yin walks with me where'er I walk, and sheds her radiance also. Upon the circle of justice is stamped the circle of mercy. And if you would also do as I do, wherever you attempt or seek to administer justice to others, whom you also may have beneath your charge, you will give forth mercy, but not in that quality unbalanced which will cause mankind to destroy themselves because of your lack of firmness, but in that perfect balance of spiritual understanding which gives to each man that portion of mercy properly mixed with justice that is best for him, guided by cosmic purity and the hand of the Infinite One, who bends the very consciousness of man to do his will when invoked, and stands ready to administer every quality of purity to those who are the listening ones to the voice of God speaking within their own conscience. The national conscience, you say? What of the international conscience, or the cosmic conscience? What of the galactic conscience? And what of the causal body of the universe? What of the conscious conscience of the Most High God? Do you think that heaven is without conscience? In the name of justice and mercy, I say the consciousness of God holds his conscience ever near at hand. And there is so much mercy mixed with cosmic justice in all things, visible and invisible, that none ought ever to feel that injustices are fostered by God upon man. For all that seems to be unjust is in reality a manifestation of heaven's own judgment. The perfection that is so real and complete that to enter it and to accept it is to obtain freedom. To reject it is to struggle against the law which can never be broken. And those who fall upon this law will find that they are broken indeed. But those upon whom this law falls will be crushed beneath its weight, that they may be broken and rise again, to reform out of broken substance that vital unity which will give them their freedom. No form is broken, no changes are instituted, except they are by cosmic design and purpose. For truly, man proposes and God disposes. His justice and mercy endureth forever, and those who would enter its sacred precincts must recognize that they do so through the veil of the present hour, through the veil of their own misqualified substance, and through the veil of karma, individual karma, national karma, international karma, earthly karma, solar karma, galactic karma, and karma to the most high reaches of being. Karma itself, precious ones, does not mean injustice. It simply means the administration of heaven in all of its relations with the world and with men. It is righteousness expressed that men may rise to find their talents in the skies of being, the purity of seeing, the dawn of reason and compassion, the viewing that in itself is spewing out all discord for purification, and is exalting truth in men and mercy and righteousness, that holds in all the flame of compassion blazing, that by the power of heaven is raising the earth and all thereon to the highest bond, where songs of praise are sung, and the bound go free in boundless symphony of celestial radiance, pouring forth from God's delight by angelic hand so bright, until all men are free to see, to know, to be that which I am and which all men are, the comfort star that abides in the eye of God and his being all inclusive. I thank you.